Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about the Twilight Zone Season 3, Episode 29. It's called 4 O'Clock. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. This episode is about basically someone who goes onto Twitter and shits on people and has a lot of psychological problems and possibly watches a lot of Fox News. However, unfortunately for them, they were born way before their time. So it's what the equivalent of that is in the 1960s, which is writing mean letters, phoning people and harassing them, and also trying to get people fired from their jobs. That is the premise of this episode. Like, no shit, the opening scene has this character, our main character here, Krangle, Mr. Krangle. He phones up two places. One is just, so-and-so who works for you is a communist. I'm not going to give you any evidence or tell you why I know this or where this comes from, but he's a communist. You better fire him. And then he calls a school and says, this teacher who works for you, yeah, he's a drinker. And the relationship he has with the children is questionable at best. You just imply he's a paedophile. What?
Yeah. And when he hangs up the phone too, he talks to his pet parrot all the time and says, like, I don't know if anything's going to come of this, but I've planted the seed. So I've done my due diligence.
Yeah, see, the first scene I was kind of like, okay, like, is this a prank? Does he actually have information? Or is this like just him being like, oh, you know, where are we going with this? And it does sort of become clear as it goes on that it is just him being this crazy, like, just almost a psychopath,
like a purity seeker, you know, like he's trying to find, like, people are either in the category of good or evil, and I assume that anyone that is him is good in his eyes, and then everyone else, unless they're 100% pure, is evil.
Yeah, the part that made me think of the Twitter comparison specifically is because after this opening scene, there's effectively, he gets 3 visitors, right? So each visitor kind of represents a chunk of the episode. The first visitor is his landlady or whoever it is, and that's just kind of there to set up his attitude towards people and so on, and explain that he's got files on like hundreds if not thousands of people in the area that he's been monitoring.
Yeah, I assume he's in like more of a small town area, so he's able to like keep track of everybody that way.
But the second visitor he gets is a woman who shows up and wants to see him. And it turns out that this woman is the wife of a doctor, and the doctor is someone that he's been targeting. He's been sending letters and leaving phone messages, calling this guy a murderer because he failed to save someone on an operating table, and he deems that he should have been able to save the person, even though this guy is not a medical expert by any means. He's clearly not an expert in anything he's talking about. And this made me think of Twitter, because it made me think of whenever someone like either gets something wrong or makes a mistake, or hell, even on YouTube, if you say something factually slightly incorrect, all of a sudden your entire credibility is called into question because you made a human error. Oh, you should be tried for murder because you made one mistake once, maybe.
Right. In reality, if you were like having the same conversation with just your friends or a group of people or whatever, someone would be like, well, that's wrong. You'd be like, oh, I guess that was wrong. No biggie.
And you shrug.
Whatever.
and you move on with your lives. That's that's what made me think of Twitter, especially, was that particular thing. And but then all the anti-communist stuff, all the I have to hunt down the communists. That was
it's more of like a McCarthyism, like, layover.
Yeah, that was kind of the 60s version of what I was thinking of like someone who's obsessed with Fox News and just looking for communists everywhere.
Right.
So, you know, I was constantly thinking about it in the context of like fitting this into a present day thing. But yeah, and then the third visitor, of course, that he gets is an FBI agent who he has actually sought out. He has called the FBI. Apparently, he's left messages with the local police. He's left messages with the fire department because he's made a choice when the wife for the doctor was there and she's pleading to, like, you know, stop this because he's not going to lose his job. She makes it very clear. They're not firing him. They're not taking this seriously. And we have to also assume that the people that he phoned at the start are probably not going to just fire the people that he's accused of things without any type of...
But the seed has been planted, so you never know what will happen.
Yeah, you never know. But in this case, she says that no, her husband has not been fired. But it's more that it's getting to him. It's that someone is putting... And that, again, that's what's making me think of Twitter, is the idea that he shouldn't be taking this guy seriously. He's clearly just a shithead who's trying to get into his brain. But that constant negativity and that constant thing is actually making him feel guilty, which is why she's here. It's why she's trying to plead with him. So, again, very comparable to... Which is to say that I don't actually think this episode is that good, but I will give it credit for actually kind of feeling still relevant in a lot of the subjects that it's exploring, even though I don't actually think the story of the episode is all that interesting or satisfying.
Surprisingly, although I think we have like a lot to say about it, a lot of the episode is just sort of just waiting for the ending. Because like right in the beginning, he tells you, we're waiting for 4:00. That's the name of the episode. 4:00, something's going to happen. So it just kind of feels like stalling up until that point. Like we're just stalling until 4:00 comes around.
Yeah, it's when
they throw in, you know, visitors and stuff. And like the actor who plays the lead role is quite like good. Like he's given it his all. He's totally
animated.
Full crazy.
Yeah. He's very animated.
So he's fun to watch still.
Yeah, it's the doctor's wife where, because it seems like he decided something was happening at 4:00 before he decided what it was going to be, because it's the doctor's wife that inspires him, where he says, at 4:00 everyone who is evil in the world is going to become little. And it's like, okay, that's kind of weird, because the last episode was the episode with the astronauts and the tiny like population. Obviously they're much smaller, but it's just kind of funny thematically that we're talking about little versions of people again. But he says at 4:00 everyone's going to become little, and I think it's kind of frustrating that the end of the episode is just the most obvious outcome to that, which is just he's the only one who becomes little. Is him. He's the little one because he's the only evil one. I don't know. It was like, okay. I feel like this sort of general comeuppance type of ending is something that we've done enough now that there was no other interesting elements to feel like it was a new spin on it or anything like that. And yeah, don't get me wrong. The scene with the FBI agent where he comes in and he says, I've been harassing these people, I've been phoning them because they hate it. These evil people hate it when you phone them in the middle of the night and wake them up. And the FBI agent's like, most people hate that. Not just the evil ones.
They don't have to be evil for that. Yeah.
And it's very clear from the FBI agent's reactions as the scene goes on, as he's explaining what he does and what he's doing, that he's like clearly getting this idea of this unhinged character. And then by the time he's like, oh yeah, at 4:00 they're all going to become little. What do you think of that? Like this is why I'm warning everyone.
Seek some help. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, have you had any psychiatric help?
You're now on our watch list. Yeah.
Yeah, because now you're the one that feels like you're the dangerous entity. You're the potential terrorist or whatever. Like this guy's got some serious problems. And the ending is, of course, is that he shrinks down to about a third of his size, which is, for the record, I mean that sounds like 2 feet. Weird. But in actual fact, it looks more like. Well, maybe it is 2 foot tall, give or take. I don't know. Obviously, there's an effect going on so that the parrot he's got looks bigger than him, and he can't reach the windowsill, so he's jumping up and trying to get to it.
I guess the idea is that like he feels like such a big person because he has this power. He's able to like plant these seeds and to get people to. I mean, I think a lot of people feel that way. They're like, I have the ability to change things by calling out evil online or where I see it, and makes people feel big, but really they're just like small little people with little voices that need to do this to feel big. I guess.
Yeah, it's this idea of feeling more important than you actually are by giving yourself this grand purpose, and all he's actually doing is harassing people who by and large are probably innocent. Like, maybe he stumbles into a few people who actually do deserve some comeuppance for something, but for the most part, I'm going to go out on the limb and say that most of them are completely innocent and do not deserve even to be considered for anything, never mind what he's putting them through.
Well, plus the first thing he does is call somebody a communist, which makes you think of McCarthyism, where it's like, yeah, they probably are innocent.
Yes. Because that was my thing, is... Because he says, I'll be calling back in a few days to see if you've... because there'll be ramifications if you don't fire this person immediately. There'll be ramifications, and I wasn't because I wasn't sure where the episode was going. I thought, we actually go down this path where he's going to harass this person again to try, and because this could be interesting. Because there was a movie a few years ago that was based on a true event called Compliance, and it was about someone who phoned like a fast food restaurant claiming to be a police officer and effectively convinced the manager to detain an employee, and kind of over the course of the day, like, kind of made them do a lot of things in the name of compliance, and that you're doing this for the authorities. And I was wondering, is it going to go down that route where he kind of actually gets some action taken against someone who's innocent? And that went down a really dark path, because that was like a story about how he talked someone into like sexually abusing her and something like that. It was super, because he's like, oh, she needs to be searched, and it was, we went down this kind of creepy path. But it was based on a true story. It's something that Ann Dowd played the manager, and she's really good. So, but
a movie I was thinking of, oddly enough, was Frailty. Just like having like trying to sort out good and evil people in the world, and if somebody is crazy or not. Yeah.
Okay, I can see the comparison. Yeah.
I got flashes of Frailty.
Because I was thinking that maybe it'll go down like something like that, where he's going to keep with this one target, and it's going to be about how he ruins someone's life by just harassing their boss. And I was expecting like, oh, maybe we're going to sort of see cracks where the boss will want proof of that something's going on or something, but then he'll never actually get it, but he'll get scared enough that he's going to do it anyway. And it's going to be the story of how he ruins someone's life, and it never actually becomes that. It never goes down that. It very quickly just becomes, oh no, this man is a complete psychopath who thinks that he is the only sane man in the world, and everyone else is evil, and he's calling people out. Because even when he's like belittling the landlady, and he's like, he pulls out the little card, and he's like, no political affiliation, husband, no political affiliation, but negative trait does have curiosity and ignorance. And he kind of looks at her like, I may want to see to that, I may want to get that up, because I of course are the judge and ruler of everyone, and you should
like she should take it as a threat.
Yeah, and she feels threatened at one point, because he says something like, oh, if you're even here in the future, it's like, are you threatening me? It's like, no, of course not, I don't threaten, I simply spout facts. Yeah.
Well, when she passes the wife of the doctor who's going up the stairs, she kind of says something like, oh, he's just full of he's just hot-headed and thinks he's powerful or whatever. But yeah, I mean, the ideas are really good in this episode, but there is something that still like makes it not great, and I think it really comes to the ending. Like, the ending is super obvious, but also like, why does he think that he can just will people into being 2 feet tall?
Yeah, he seems to think...
It just kind of comes from nowhere, and I don't understand why he thinks that he has this ability.
There's one or two lines where it sounds like he thinks he has a connection to God, and therefore he's got the...
Like, God's going to do this to, like, so everybody else can see who's evil.
It is fairly random. There's, like, nothing about the episode. Like, exploring the psychology of a character like this is the interesting part of the episode, potentially. But the whole supernatural element where he just believes he's going to, turn everyone he disagrees with into 2 foot tall is just really random. And like, why does he even think he has a supernatural ability, or that God will do this for him? It feels really tacked on to something where there's actually interesting themes to explore. There's I don't know how you necessarily end it and sort of go about it differently without that element, but there's definitely ways to do it. There's maybe the FBI agent will actually send help, like, professional help to come and talk to him, or maybe he'll attack someone or harass someone who turns out to be innocent, or who'll come for revenge, or have consequences for something that he does, like, and whether or not he learns from that, or it's just a tragedy where it's kind of he meets his end. Well, I don't even necessarily he dies, but just he meets an untimely end because of a knock-on effect of how he's treated people, something like that. I don't know, whatever, but this just kind of feels a bit, oh, it's Twilight Zone, we have to have something Twilight Zone-y at the end, and it just kind of feels tacked on.
Yeah, a little bit.
Even though it's seeded early in the episode, but the entire inclusion of it the whole time feels tacked on to a far more interesting conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's basically it. That's the
even
episode.
The 4 o'clock time limit thing seems a little tacked on.
It just feels random. Like, why 4 o'clock? Why? Because
I just decided 4 o'clock.
Because the episode's called 4 o'clock, so it makes it feel like it's going to be important that it's 4 o'clock. But he just kind of randomly decides that. It's not like, say if you'd said, okay, the name of this episode is Midnight, right? And then you start the episode and you've got, like, say, aliens or a group of humans who are all saying, we've been working on this for years, and at midnight it's finally going to happen, and it's all about teasing the mystery. And there's okay, that at that point the title's justified because the entire thing's about building to that time. Here it's just again, it just feels a bit tacked on to everything. Yeah. So, hey ho, there you go. That is 4 o'clock. Of course, Rod did come out at the end. It was Hocus Pocus and something. I'll give you the exact title here. Hocus Pocus and Frisbee is the name of the next episode.
Apparently, it's going to be quite whimsical or funny or something.
So it's a lighthearted one, but Twilight Zone's been, I'd say, more miss than hit when it comes to the comedy episodes.
I'd say so too.
But here's the premise on IMDb. A rural gas station attendant given to telling tall tales about himself is kidnapped by aliens who believe him to be one of Earth's leading intellects.
Oh my god, we're getting a Galaxy Quest episode.
That sounds kind of fun, potentially. So we'll see how they handle it. Yeah.
Hopefully they don't eat him. Or hopefully they do.
Like, imagine aliens got the guy in this episode and they thought he was like the authority on Earth. Like, you're the one to talk to. You're the one who knows what's going on.
I did see that there was like a radio version of this episode, and apparently like the parrot eats him at the end because his head looks like a nut or something. That
may have been fun. He was feeding the parrot nuts throughout the whole episode. It was kind of a recurring thing he kept doing. So I can see
because his head's like the size of a walnut now. The parrot goes after it.
I guess they just didn't think of a way to shoot that, like, and with a budget, like how to pull off the effect.
One thing that's interesting about the themes of this episode is that I looked up the actor, and he's actually is known for a career of activism and being totally against like McCarthyism and stuff. So it's interesting that they casted him as somebody who is the complete opposite of who he is in reality.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I think you'll often find that when you have stories like this which are criticizing that, the actions taken by people who believe that, you'll find that the actors playing the characters are people who agree with the point of the episode or the point of the movie or the story. So that makes sense to me. Typically speaking, if
it's satire, for sure.
Yeah, satire, or even just like, like for example, when you watch a movie and there's like a really hardcore Nazi in it, there's a good chance the actor who's portraying it is probably very not much that, because they're agreeing to be in a movie that's clearly the wrong thing, and that's clearly the villain, and that's clearly like that tends to be the case. Not always, of course, but there's a logic to it that makes some sense. That was the other thing, actually. At one point, he starts talking about conspiracies. He believes the Reds have infiltrated the government at every level, and even accuses the FBI agent at one point of being one of them. And it's like, all right, okay. Anyone who at all disagrees with you, they've been infiltrated. They're the enemy. So
doesn't sound like anybody else we know.
You say that as if it's one person, and not millions and millions.
One formerly important person. Formerly.
Oh dear. There you go. That has been this discussion of Twilight Zone Season 3, Episode 29, meaning that we have 7, or maybe, actually I think there's a couple extra in this season compared to Season 1. But we're in the 30s though. Starting next week, we're in the 30s of Season 3.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
I know. So many episodes.
It's going to be so hard to do a best and worst of list. I have to really think back.
Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. You can like and subscribe. It is very important on YouTube to do that, given that those are the things that YouTube deems successful and sort of prioritize in terms of the videos shared out and things like that. So that's why every YouTuber tells you to do that. So please do hit those buttons. Check out Male Fuzz Movies, our other YouTube channel, if you want to see myself and Tara review sci-fi movies on the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Those tend to be very in-depth and, well, just long. I'll just say it. They're long. But Tara's going to tell you about Patreon.
That's right. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MileFuzzTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you'll get bonus episodes for our science fiction movie review show. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access to these Babylon 5 Twilight Zone episodes 1 week early. Some other shows you get a day early. So fun. And you get Babylon 5 a week early, which I apparently really want to tell you about.
I mean, I've been really enjoying Babylon 5. There's strong following for those reviews. But yes, thank you very much for joining us once again. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.